They cut me out of the $1.4 billion project I built. My signature shut it down overnight. Hi, I'm Luna Mitchell, and I'm 31 years old. What happened to me 6 months ago will change how you think about corporate contracts forever. Before I tell you how I went from being erased from my own billion-dollar project to owning the entire company in just 72 hours, go ahead and hit that subscribe button below. If you love stories where brilliant women outsmart corrupt executives using nothing but legal fine print, this channel is your new obsession. Now let me tell you how one signature destroyed 4 years of betrayal and made me the CEO of my own company. I'm standing in the empty boardroom at 2 a.m., pen trembling in my hand as I stare at the signature that will kill the project I spent 4 years building. The city lights twinkle below me through floor-to-ceiling windows, but all I can see is red. They thought they were so clever, cutting me out of the $1.4 billion energy revolution I created from scratch. Preston Clark and his board of vultures celebrated while I was erased from history. But they made one fatal mistake: they never bothered to read the fine print I wrote into every single contract. My signature hits the paper with surgical precision. Not an approval. A termination notice. By sunrise, the phones will be ringing off the hook. Investors will be panicking. The launch will be dead in the water. And Preston Clark will be begging me to come back. They have no idea what's coming. 4 years ago, I walked into Zenith Energy with nothing but a revolutionary idea and enough determination to power a small city. Fresh out of MIT with a PhD in sustainable technology, I was hungry to change the world. Preston Clark hired me to lead their experimental division. Code 4 will let the brilliant woman play with theories while the men handle real business. I didn't care about his condescension. I had a vision: clean energy storage that could replace fossil fuels globally. For 4 years, I lived in that lab. 18-hour days became normal. I missed birthdays, holidays, weekends. My entire life revolved around perfecting the technology that would revolutionize everything. Every patent application had my name. Every contract bore my signature. Every breakthrough came from my sleepless nights and relentless innovation. The prototype worked. The testing exceeded expectations. We attracted $1.4 billion in funding from the world's biggest energy companies. I didn't know then how important those signature details would become. Luna, when this project launches, you'll be our youngest senior partner, Preston promised during our quarterly review. Your name will be on the building. That was 18 months ago. The project was ready. The technology was perfect. The investors were throwing money at us faster than we could count it. But promotion meetings kept getting postponed. Just waiting for the right timing, Preston would say with that practiced smile. Meanwhile, I watched mediocre men get promoted around me. Gary Mills became COO after 2 years with the company. Jackson Turner got the senior engineering role I'd been promised. Soon became Preston's favorite word. Very soon. The launch date was set, March 15th. The biggest energy announcement in a decade. Press conferences were scheduled. The White House was interested. Instead of a promotion, I got an invitation that would shatter my world. The launch party was everything I'd dreamed of and nothing I'd expected. The ballroom glittered with industry leaders, government officials, and enough money to buy several small countries. Preston took the stage in his $1,000 suit, basking in applause for work he'd never done. 4 years ago, Zenith Energy embarked on an ambitious journey, he announced to the crowd. Thanks to our incredible team of engineers and visionaries, we're proud to present the future of clean energy. He thanked Gary Mills. He thanked Jackson Turner. He thanked the janitor who emptied the trash in our lab. My name never left his lips. I stood in the back, champagne turning bitter in my mouth, watching my life's work being claimed by others. Then someone handed me a press release that would change everything. The official press release was beautifully formatted corporate propaganda. Zenith Energy Breakthrough Team leads $1.4 billion clean revolution. Gary Mills, Chief Operations Officer and Project Lead. Jackson Turner, Senior Engineering Director. Even Preston's nephew, who joined the company 6 months ago, was listed as a key contributor. My name was nowhere to be found. 4 years of my life, erased. Like I'd never existed. But as I stood there, fury building in my chest, I remembered something that made me smile for the first time all evening. They'd erased me from the press release, from the presentation, from the celebration. But they couldn't erase me from the contracts. And those contracts contained a clause that only I could control. Monday morning, I requested a meeting with Preston and 2 board members. They kept me waiting 40 minutes, a power play I'd grown used to. Luna, we appreciate your contributions to the project, Preston began with rehearsed sympathy. But we've decided to transition you out of the company. Transition me out? The project is complete. Your role was developmental. Now we need operations people. Board member Catherine Stone nodded gravely. We're offering a generous severance package. And if I refuse? Preston's mask slipped slightly. Then termination for cause. Your choice. I smiled, thinking of the documents locked in my personal safe. I need time to consider. 24 hours, Preston said curtly. As I walked out, I heard Catherine whisper, think she'll fight it? What can she do? Preston laughed. She's got no leverage. They had no idea I was holding the master key to everything. That night, I pulled out my original employment agreement, the one I'd negotiated 4 years ago when I was young and naive enough to trust corporate promises. Buried in Section 47C was a clause my lawyer had insisted on. No commercial product launch utilizing developers' intellectual property shall proceed without developers' explicit written consent. At the time, Preston had laughed it off. Of course you'll consent to launching your own work. For years later, that clause was my nuclear weapon. Every patent, every breakthrough, every innovation that made their $1.4 billion project possible, it all traced back to my original work. Work that legally required my consent to commercialize. Consent that I had never given for this launch. The next morning, I arrived early and positioned myself near the executive break room. Preston and Gary were celebrating with expensive coffee and cheaper morals. Removing Luna was brilliant, Gary said. Saves us millions in equity and bonuses. The investors don't need to know she was ever involved, Preston replied. As far as they're concerned, this was always our team's project. What if she talks? Preston laughed coldly. Who's going to believe a disgruntled employee over a successful CEO? Besides, she signed the NDAs. NDAs don't cover theft of intellectual property, I thought, recording every word on my phone. She's probably crying into her cereal right now, Gary added. They shared a laugh that would haunt them very soon. They didn't know their shortcut had just become a legal dead end. I spent the weekend methodically documenting everything. 4 years of emails, patent applications, research notes, and contract modifications. Every piece of evidence that proved this project was my intellectual property. Then I did something that would terrify them. I reached out to Benjamin Stone, the lead investor representing the $1.4 billion fund. Mr. Stone? This is Luna Mitchell from Zenith Energy. I need to discuss some concerns about the upcoming launch. Ms. Mitchell? Preston told us you'd moved to a consulting role with another division. Perfect. He'd been lying to investors too. That's not accurate, and that's exactly what I need to discuss with you. We scheduled a meeting for Tuesday morning. Private. Confidential. Just the two of us. As I prepared my presentation, I couldn't help but smile. Preston thought he was so clever, erasing me from the narrative. But he'd forgotten that investors care about one thing above all else: legal liability. Benjamin Stone's face went from polite interest to genuine alarm as I walked him through the documentation. You're telling me that Preston Clark misrepresented the development team to our consortium? I'm telling you that the intellectual property you've invested $1.4 billion in legally belongs to someone who's being forced out of the company. I slid the contracts across his mahogany desk. Every patent application lists me as the primary inventor. Every breakthrough is documented under my research. And this clause gives me veto power over any commercial launch. Benjamin's hands shook as he read Section 47C. This could invalidate our entire investment. Only if Preston proceeds without my consent. And your consent? I smiled sweetly. Has been officially withdrawn as of this morning. He reached for his phone immediately. I need to call an emergency board meeting. For 72 hours, I said nothing to anyone at Zenith Energy. I went to work, smiled politely, and let them think they'd won. Preston was practically glowing. Gary strutted around like a peacock. The engineering team prepared for their moment of glory. Meanwhile, Benjamin Stone was quietly having conversations with the other investors. Lawyers were reviewing contracts using emergency procedures. Accountants were calculating exposure. The calm before the storm was beautiful in its deception. I used those 3 days to copy every remaining file I might need, send encrypted backups to my personal accounts, and prepare for the tsunami that was coming. Tuesday afternoon, I got a text from Benjamin, board meeting scheduled for Thursday. Stay close to your phone. The moment I'd been waiting for was approaching fast. Thursday morning, 2 days before the scheduled launch, my email chimed with a message from Preston's assistant. Luna, please review and sign the attached final approval form for your departmental contributions. Legal formality before launch. Please return by end of day. The irony was delicious. They wanted my signature to legitimize stealing my work. I opened the document, a standard approval form acknowledging my valuable contributions to the team effort and granting full authorization for commercial deployment. They'd even highlighted the signature line in yellow. I printed the form, signed it carefully, and scanned it back. But I didn't sign what they expected me to sign. Instead of signing the approval form, I attached my signature to a completely different document. A formal cease and desist notice withdrawing all intellectual property rights. The legal language was crystal clear. Luna Mitchell hereby revokes all consent for commercial use of her intellectual property and demands immediate cessation of all launch activities pending resolution of ownership disputes. I sent it to Preston's assistant, but also copied every investor, board member, and legal contact I'd collected over 4 years. Within an hour, the dominoes started falling. My phone buzzed with a text from Benjamin Stone. Holy shit. What have you done? I typed back, taken back what was always mine. By noon, the cease and desist notice had reached everyone who mattered in the investment chain. The office erupted into chaos by 1 p.m. Phones rang constantly. Executives ran between offices like chickens with their heads cut off. Gary Mills burst into my old office, now empty since they'd moved me to a supply closet last week. Where is she? He shouted to my replacement. She's been moved to, find her. Now. I watched from the break room as Preston stormed through the hallways, his face red with fury and panic. The investors were calling. The lawyers were calling. The press was starting to ask questions. 24 hours before the biggest launch in company history, everything was falling apart. And they had no idea where I was or how to stop the bleeding. Security badges were being checked. They'd have to come find me. My phone rang at 3:47 p.m. Preston's name flashed on the screen. "Luna, we need to talk immediately." "I'm sorry, who is this?" "Don't play games with me." "What the hell did you send to our investors?" "Oh, that. Just some legal documentation clarifying intellectual property ownership." "You can't do this. You'll destroy everything." "Everything you stole from me?" "Yes, that's the idea." "Luna, please, let's discuss this like professionals." I hung up on him mid-sentence. The phone rang again immediately. I declined the call. 3 more calls. All declined. Finally, a text, "Name your price." I typed back, "You couldn't afford it." By Friday morning, the investor revolt was in full swing. Benjamin Stone called an emergency meeting with Preston and the board. The consortium is prepared to withdraw all funding unless Luna Mitchell is immediately reinstated to the project with full recognition of her contributions. Preston tried to maintain control. "The launch is in less than 24 hours. We can't change everything now. Then you can explain to your shareholders why $1.4 billion in investment just evaporated," Benjamin replied coldly. "We're prepared to negotiate with Ms. Mitchell," board member Catherine Stone interjected. "Good. Because she has conditions." "What conditions?" Benjamin slid a document across the table. "These conditions." Preston's face went white as he read my demands. "Full reinstatement as senior partner, back pay for 4 years of stolen equity, and triple my original equity share." But there was one more condition that made him physically gag. "A public apology?" Preston's voice cracked. "You want me to publicly apologize for what exactly?" "For stealing 4 years of Luna's work and attempting to launch her intellectual property without consent," Benjamin read from my demands. "This is extortion." "This is business," Catherine Stone corrected. "You created this mess, Preston." Gary Mills leaned forward desperately. "What kind of public apology?" "During the launch event. On stage. In front of the media, investors, and industry leaders," Benjamin continued reading. "Full acknowledgement of Luna Mitchell as the primary inventor and project architect." Preston's political career aspirations flashed before his eyes. A public admission of theft would end everything. "And if I refuse?" "Then the project dies, the investors sue for fraud, and you explain to the board why you cost the company $1.4 billion. He agreed to the terms, his signature shaky with rage. But I had one final trap waiting. Saturday morning, the day of the launch, a courier delivered a sealed envelope to Preston's home. Inside was a comprehensive legal agreement outlining my reinstatement terms. Standard corporate language, professional formatting, completely legitimate. Preston was under massive pressure from investors demanding immediate launch readiness. He skimmed the document quickly, trusting his legal team to review the details after the event. He signed it and sent it back within an hour. His lawyers called that afternoon in a panic. "Preston, did you read Section 23D of the agreement you signed?" "What about it?" "The operational control clause. You just gave Luna Mitchell complete creative and operational authority over the project." "So?" "And Section 31A states that any breach of the agreement results in full ownership transfer to Ms. Mitchell." Preston dropped the phone. He'd just signed his company away. The launch event was held at the downtown convention center. 3,000 attendees, live television coverage, and enough media attention to make or break careers. I arrived in a black suit that cost more than most people's cars, walking through the crowd like I owned the place. Which, legally speaking, I was about to. Preston was waiting backstage, sweating through his expensive shirt. "Luna, please, we can work this out privately. We could have worked it out 4 years ago. Or 3 years ago. Or even last week. The public apology will ruin my reputation." "Good. Maybe next time you won't steal someone's life work." The event coordinator announced my introduction. Time to face the music. I walked onto the stage to thunderous applause, cameras flashing from every angle. But Preston was about to make a fatal mistake. Preston took the microphone first, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we celebrate this incredible achievement, I want to thank our amazing development team." He looked directly at me, hatred burning in his eyes. This project succeeded because of the collaborative efforts of many talented individuals at Zenith Energy. He was doing it. Despite the signed agreement requiring full public acknowledgement of my role, he was completely omitting my name and contribution. Gary Mills. Jackson Turner. Even the janitor got mentioned. But not Luna Mitchell, the actual inventor. I smiled and pulled out my phone, opening the signed agreement to Section 31A. Benjamin Stone stood up in the front row, holding a copy of the contract. "Mr. Clark, you just breached your agreement on live television." Section 31A, Benjamin announced to the confused crowd, states that any breach of this agreement results in immediate ownership transfer of all intellectual property and operational control to Luna Mitchell. The audience murmured in confusion. Preston's face went ashen. "And according to the contract Mr. Clark signed this morning, failing to provide full public acknowledgement of Ms. Mitchell's role constitutes a material breach." Preston tried to grab the microphone. "This is a private matter, which you just breached publicly," I said, taking the mic from his hands. "Ladies and gentlemen, as of this moment, I am the legal owner and CEO of this project." Security moved toward Preston as the crowd erupted in chaos. "You can't do this," he screamed. "I just did." Ownership had transferred to me on live television. Preston was escorted out by security while cameras captured every moment. With Preston gone and the crowd buzzing with excitement, I took control of my moment. For years ago, I had a vision of clean energy that could change the world. Today, that vision becomes reality. I gestured to the massive screen behind me, displaying the technology I'd sacrificed everything to create. This project succeeded because of brilliant engineering, relentless innovation, and the kind of determination that comes from believing in something bigger than yourself. The crowd was with me now, hanging on every word. But it also succeeded because sometimes, when people try to steal your dreams, you have to be willing to fight for them. The applause was deafening. Effective immediately, this company will operate under new leadership, new values, and a new name. I paused for dramatic effect, savoring the moment I'd dreamed of for months. From this day forward, this company will be known as Luna Technologies, I announced to thunderous applause. The investors were on their feet. The media was frantically scribbling notes. This was the story of the century. We will continue to revolutionize clean energy, but we will do it with integrity, recognition for true contributors, and respect for the brilliant minds who make innovation possible. I paused, looking directly into the cameras. To every woman, every inventor, every dreamer who's ever been told their work doesn't matter, your signature has power. Use it wisely. Security was quietly escorting Gary Mills out of the building. His attempt to approach the stage had been blocked, and his career at Luna Technologies was officially over. And to those who think they can steal someone's life work and get away with it, next time, read the fine print. The crowd roared with approval. The press was eating up every word. That evening, as the celebration continued around me, I stood on the same balcony where I'd signed the cease and desist notice just a week ago. My phone buzzed with congratulatory messages from colleagues, competitors, and complete strangers who'd seen the news. But the best message came from my MIT advisor. Proud of you, Luna. You changed the world twice, once with your invention, once with your courage. Preston Clark's political aspirations were finished. Gary Mills was updating his LinkedIn profile. The executives who'd celebrated stealing my work were discovering that karma has perfect timing. Meanwhile, Luna Technologies stock was already trading at premium prices. I'd gone from being erased to being unstoppable in less than a week. All because I understood the power of reading contracts before signing them. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my corner office, the one that used to belong to Preston Clark, reviewing contracts for our international expansion. Luna Technologies has partnerships in 12 countries. Our clean energy solution is being implemented by governments worldwide. Time magazine named me one of their Innovators of the Year. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that moment when I stood in this same room, deciding whether to sign that cease and desist notice. The woman who walked into Zenith Energy 4 years ago never could have imagined she'd own the company that tried to destroy her. But she also never imagined how powerful her signature could be. Every contract I sign now includes the same clause that saved my career, explicit consent requirements for any use of my intellectual property. I learned my lesson about trusting corporations with my life's work. But they learned a bigger lesson about underestimating brilliant women with good lawyers. Next time, don't cut out the person holding the pen. If this story proves anything, it's that your signature is more powerful than you think. Have you ever been cut out of something you created? Share your story in the comments. This community celebrates everyone who refuses to let their work be stolen. Smash that like button if you believe brilliant women deserve credit for their brilliance. Subscribe and hit the bell for more stories where justice comes with a legal signature. Comment your thoughts. I personally respond to every single one. Share this with anyone who's ever been erased from their own success, because sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting everything. Including the company that tried to steal from you.